Dímelo, mi gente. Marcucci here, getting me another video. And today we have Ben Keathley, Missouri House of Representative from District 101, correct?
Correct.
So yeah, we're actually but in not buddies, but we're comrades in the state of New York. He did his Juris Doctor and Masters at Syracuse. He's originally from Missouri, St. Louis. I read that you've been there for about 30 something years.
I've lived
So
I've lived in St. Louis my whole life, basically.
so perfect. And the best part of it all, he is helping out the taxpayers in Missouri to receive some amazing tax breaks. Some of the stuff that you've done is amazing. So you helped local governments from assessing franchise taxes on streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, and
Mhm.
YouTube TV. You fought for reducing sales taxes on necessaries like groceries. So you're doing a lot of things. And now you introduce a strategic Bitcoin reserve in the state of Missouri. So thank you for being here with us, Ben. How are you?
Great. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you so much. So, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about Bitcoin, how you found it out, and about your backstory.
Yeah, well, it's I've been aware of Bitcoin for a long time, and I think back when it was, back when it was nothing and it was worth nothing, and there wasn't too much going on with it. I had always found it as interesting curiosity. Definitely saw the value in a decentralized currency asset, and definitely a valuable hedge. And then for how early I learned about it. I'm sorry that I was such a late adapter to go into it, but I did go into it and definitely see the value of. I think it's I'm kind of a more real worth decentralized currency kind of person and value kind of person. From precious metals to crypto. Sometimes having the backing of a military is more of a crutch for a currency, and when that crutch gets kicked out, we we find out how weak the actual faith in the actual currency is. And whereas currencies without militaries backing up what they are, there's actually a lot more realness to their wealth and to their value, and that realness can be held a lot easier. I see crypto very much in that vein. That I think it's not just a trend. We're looking at something that has that power of it doesn't need the illusory backing or faiths instilled into it by a government that forces, and it has value because so and so says it has value. It has value because the market trusts it, and that's really real value when you have that.
Yeah, and not only that, the computing power all around the world. This is a system
Mm-hmm.
that's never been hacked before, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about something that is truly decentralized in many different countries all around the world. Uh, People are running nodes. So yeah, that's amazing. So tell us about Missouri. I personally never been to Missouri. I want to go to St. Louis. I heard the
Mm-hmm.
barbecue is really, really good. But how the state funds currently invested in Missouri, and what are like kind of the best practices that you guys do?
So we all investment is done through the treasurer's office in Missouri. The treasurer manages the funds. We have various different funds for different things. The treasurer is authorized that anything we invest in has to be allowable by the Constitution and authorized by the treasurer to then invest in. So it's limited to only the things specified. So right now, without a change to the law and maybe without a change to the Constitution as well, we don't have the ability to have any kind of crypto, any kind of Bitcoin, anything like that to be a part of our portfolio as a state and any funds we hold. So I filed the bill that would essentially allow us. It doesn't compel anything, but it says here's another option that our state treasurer could pursue in diversifying our portfolio and extending our portfolio options. And by the way, it's an option that's a lot better of a hedge against inflationary policies of our federal government, of our state government, and a lot more long term of a strategy.
Perfect. And how does HB 1217, right? HB
You
1217.
got it. Yep.
How does that fill into Missouri's like broader financial strategy, right? me personally, I haven't heard of like Missouri economy and what you guys
Mhm.
do. So how does adopting Bitcoin and allowing the straight treasurer to hold it help you guys out?
Well, I think the big thing and the obvious thing is the hedge against inflation. And the other thing, Missouri has a balanced budget amendment. So Missouri is has actually, compared to other states, has been quite proficient at generating surpluses year after year. And so we have and we have different funds set up where that can go. Balanced budget amendment has gone a far way, and it allows us to have these kind of long term funds and take a long term strategic outlook. So to me, it goes, having a Bitcoin type of policy or option available to us would really go hand in hand with being able to diversify our investments and allow us to as much as the state can to break off of it's when all you're investing in are treasury bonds and treasury yields and different bonds and conventional securities. You're still subject, and our state government is still subject to those kind of inflationary spirals that we hit. So the biggest thing would be just trying to it helps our portfolio as a state if we can get into mediums that aren't as that aren't as influenced or impacted or not at all by those inflationary cycles.
Perfect. Sounds good. And I believe from what I read, the straight treasurer is going to be able to receive grants, gives, and donations through Bitcoin, right? How does that work? Like, how how does
So
you have to
yeah,
buy it, right?
I don't
I don't.
know. I don't know how much people would actually want to give. I mean, basically, it's voluntary additional tax payments. Um, there are gifts that fall to the state. A lot of times, if something is used to the state from when there's no heirs or through an inheritance or intestate situation, it's rare that the state gets anything. But we definitely would need to authorize if someone ever left a bunch of Bitcoin, and that would otherwise, through an intestate statute, go to the state. I don't know right now that the state would be allowed to accept it because it doesn't actually see it as it's not an actual currency, and we have no authorization to actually hold it. So the state might have to liquidate it to then hold the cash instead. Which to me it would be a really unfortunate situation if the state had an opportunity to realize from some type of gift or some type of estate inheritance that was coming to the state anyway. We could have obtained it as a cryptocurrency as Bitcoin, but then we're forced to sell it just because we're not authorized to hold that. So I think that would be an unfortunate situation. That's one thing would fix. But really the gift provision was really when the first drafting of the first drafting of the bill didn't deal with what I think is an important element of allowing the state to accept payments for fees and taxes in the form of in crypto form. That wasn't in there yet. So it was, well, we were creating this Bitcoin strategic reserve fund, but there was actually no way for the state to actually obtain it. So this was, okay, well, how do we get that started? How do we get that reserve fund started? And because we need a way to actually fund it from the inception. That was it. Okay, well, someone will just give it to us. I didn't really see that as probably something we could bank on ever actually happening. So then we before filing it, we went through and we included the language of, well, we're also going to accept payment for fees and taxes in it too. I think that's a questionable. People who have Bitcoin don't really want to use it to pay for things at this point. But I think on the other end of it, if someone wants to offer us that, we'd be, the state needs to be a rational financial actor like anybody else. And if someone offers you an appreciating asset for your services, goods, or other money debts that they owe to you, why wouldn't you want to take that? And so the state, so we need to, and that's so the but to answer the question, the leftover the gifts and the accepting gifts was kind of a leftover from how the question of how do we fund it, and then just made sense to leave it in because there are circumstances where that could arise, and we want to be able to not have to liquidate any type of crypto holdings.
No, it makes 100% sense. You mentioned like if the people want to like hold Bitcoin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is true. And this is something I haven't asked the other politicians, but Bitcoin was used as a peer, like it first started as a peer-to-peer, transaction and everything. I didn't put this in the questions, but do you think the state of Missouri will allow different businesses, even so the government transact in Bitcoin, like, hey, I'm sending you X amount of money, you know, here you go for this, here you go for that. Will that happen in the state of Missouri, or is that
Well,
something that you guys are looking
there,
into?
and we've there have been other bills in the 2 years prior to this that I've served here. There have been other bills that recognize digital assets and Bitcoin. Nothing's really gone. None of those have gone off the line. There are a lot of different ways and a lot of different ways. There are a lot of different ways in which we need to start legitimizing it as a currency. And I think some like recognizing it is a major help to the currency itself. But it certainly makes it in the state's best interest to keep marching down the line of legitimacy and legitimizing the currency if the state is also an investor and holding the currency. So I think for a lot of these other things to go forward in the way that's best for crypto investors and the best for the currency, probably and we'll get the best results if the state has a vested interest in seeing it appreciate as well.
Yeah, 100%. So how is it going to be stored, right? In the bill it mentions like cold storage, some other institutions like holding it. Is there a plan already on how is it going to be handled?
No, and I think to some degree we want to have some flexibility for the treasurer to make those calls. I mean, I think in theory right now the treasurer could just I think there's certain ETFs that probably would be available to the treasurer to invest in as under their authority and securities. But I think we want to we want to be able to hold the asset itself, especially when the asset's delivered to us, because otherwise you're liquidating it and you're losing in the process of converting it into an ETF. It's not the same. It doesn't have the same value. It doesn't have the same benefit. The ETF can still be subject to those inflationary cycles too. In the same way, a gold ETF isn't the same as holding gold. So I think it's important that we come up with those methods for traditional methods for how the treasurer is going to hold that fund and store it because we want to hold the actual currency. But I do think we want flexibility because that's a in terms of what platform, what type of cold storage, what type of server, what we hold that on. The state needs to do it, and the state probably needs to be able to do that in a way that typical investors that's more secure than even your typical investor. The state will be ideally holding a lot more than a typical regular investor will, and so we want to make sure that whatever we do is secure.
No, 100%. Yeah. We've seen a lot of people, really, really smart people, like lose their investments. So in Bitcoin, whether it be losing track of the keys, someone stealing the keys, something. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys are handling it, but it sounds like you guys are doing a great job. So let's talk a little bit about the state of Missouri itself and how fast these bills get passed. Because from what I've understand, different states have different time frames, right? Some states are faster than others, some states are slower. What if it passes by the Senate tomorrow and everything? When is the bill gonna like take into effect if it does pass?
So I mean, we have to go through both the House and the Senate, and it's your typical how a bill becomes a law stuff, like give or take a few things here or there, and then it would need to be signed by the governor. If we have to make any constitutional changes, those have to go to the voters on a ballot, which means that probably wouldn't be able to be done absent a special election until our normal electionary cycle, which would be August or November of 2026. So any constitutional changes, we are a ways away from being able to implement those. The statutory fixes, whatever we can do statutorily, that would go to the governor's desk, and it would have, and we'd have to do that within this session. So, and our session ends May 16th, so it'd have to be done. Go to the governor's desk prior to May 16th, and then the governor would essentially have 45 days. Typically, runs you into sometime in July to veto the bill or to allow it to become law or sign it into law. When the governor does that, then we would the bill would it would either be whatever the agreed upon date is, or the constitutionally prescribed 90-day period after that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Hey, states are adopting it. It's happening so quick. It's happening so quick," and most don't understand that these take time, right? Like, it's not
Mhm.
going to take into effect until probably 1 to 2 years. Most of the states. I mean, I think Utah's the fastest one. That's I think it's in the Senate right now. But I mean, we're still lots of ways to go. So you're the taxpayer here, right? In Missouri, you've saved so much money on taxpayers. How will this incentive like affect taxpayers if it does at all? And how it's not going to
Mhm.
impose any additional cost for residents of Missouri, right?
Right. I think it just gets absorbed into the treasurer's overall duties. The treasurer's already making investment decisions and doing that. There's no additional framework or officing requirements or that just to authorize them to be able to have this additional fund that is supposed to be for Bitcoin for cryptocurrencies. Um, so no additional cost really in that I think, but I think the more our state finances are are hedged and insulated from the inflationary cycles of the federal economy and the worldwide economy at large is better for our taxpayers, because it protects our treasury, protects our savings, protects our assets, better than normal and more than conventional assets do. And I think that's better for the taxpayers because the more the state of Missouri's assets are protected, the better it's insulated from economic trends. The more stable our finances are, and that means the less we have to go to the taxpayers to say, "Hey, you guys shoulder the burden of the risk of a financial collapse. We're just hedged against it."
Perfect. So, are there any other different digital assets that you guys might look into the future or different blockchain technologies? You mentioned minerals and you mentioned
Mhm.
different commodities. I made a video today about it's called Element. It's a blockchain on
Mhm.
Solana that they're tokenizing oil and gas. I think it's in Texas and in New Mexico. So are you guys looking into something like that in
There's
Missouri?
been there's been a major push as well over the last few years in Missouri to create a gold or silver, gold and silver, gold reserve fund as well. The U.S. Constitution that there's I think that is something that's also important just because there's even more flexibility with that. The U.S. Constitution specifically authorizes states to be able to trade in and mint gold and use it for currency, which means you could set up a whole secondary currency within your state alone off of gold. You can't do that with Bitcoin. It can't replace the dollar, but you can hold it instead of holding in treasury bonds or holding in the dollar and be hedged against any kind of devaluation of the dollar. But there's certainly a push to go into metals, particularly gold, and do look at reserve funds for that as well. I think if anything, that just because gold's been around so long, thought of as more stable, more people know. Everyone knows about gold, right? There's no learning curve with gold or buy-in, that this is actually real, with gold. So it's that I think has a little more legs already as we sit here today. But the overall concept of creating strategic reserve funds off of more stable assets than the dollar otherwise is not a new one in Missouri.
Perfect. So yeah, I think this one of the last questions. How are your colleagues and other different people in government in Missouri taking it? Like, are they for it, against it? If the bill doesn't pass, are you going to do something different? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, it's we got to working the bill and hopefully working the bill, we get an idea of where if there is any trepidation, where that is, where you run into roadblocks. So far, what I've run into mostly is just I think kind of, well, I don't know that I really believe in gold, Bitcoin, or believe in crypto. Um, and the important thing is that I try to point out to people is this doesn't mandate that any funds. It doesn't move any funds right away. It just gives the treasurer the option. And if we already are trusting the treasurer to hold our investments and make different financial decisions, and investment decisions, why wouldn't we want them to have such a powerful tool like this just at least available to them, without handcuffing them to do or not do it. So I think that I think there is a lot of understanding on that. I think the idea that there's a lot of politicians and legislators who are just ready to accept and yeah, I believe in Bitcoin. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we can get to the point where people are at least curious. They've seen enough to know that, well, this is this maybe it's not viable right now, but it will be down the road. And should we authorize? And isn't it? It's a good idea to at least authorize it. So I think we have some work to do to mainstream the idea a little bit. But I don't think I think the ask is certainly a reasonable one, and I think even the critics of Bitcoin are understand the power of having of giving the treasurer that flexibility.
Not perfect. And that's what I tell people. I mean, Bitcoin is not going to replace the dollar. It's not going to replace different stuff. It's just another option for people, to have. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in America and all over the world that don't even have a bank. I mean, my grandma
Mm-hmm.
personally had all her money underneath her bed where she used to sleep. So this is just another way to bring certain economies that
Mm-hmm.
exist. And if the treasurer is not going to accept it, I mean, that's fine. But at least it's there for him it's
Mm-hmm.
another asset for him to look into, which is perfect. So,
Mm-hmm.
Ben, any last comments for the state of Missouri, everyone there, for your colleagues too, to push them a little bit to see if they accept it?
Well, I would really, I think a lot of the a lot of the hesitation around it, I think really just stems from not understanding, not having dealt with it, not having familiarity with it, not understanding it. Anytime you're talking about what are you going to hold your finances, and that's a big deal. It's a big thing to talk about. And people think of it. I think there's a temptation to think about it like we think about stocks. Well, they go up, they go down. Bitcoin particularly is volatile, but I think the big thing is understanding how it's a currency and it's not a stock, and it's and unlike all other currencies we have, except for maybe gold, they're not printing any more of it. They're not creating any more of it. And so it's, you can print more dollars, you can print more of any currency. But the value of that, and I think there are other processes with Bitcoin, particularly, when you talk about when you look at the when you look at the halving of it, and there's guaranteed returns down the line that you can really leverage. But you got to do that now. You can't. The longer you wait, the more expensive it is to get in down the road. And I think I think when people start understanding the actual framework, and that though it's decentralized, the currency itself has very hard rules set to it that are the reason why it's been successful by the people who have already discovered it. I think when people find out all those rules that it is, the self-imposed rules it is subject to, they it's easy to see the power, and difficult to see the bottom come out.
Perfect. Hopefully, once a straight treasurer accepts it, he sends everyone in the state of Missouri at least 0.0001 Bitcoin, so people can start interacting and just
Mm-hmm.
using it. I think that's a great idea and a great incentive. And just for the people that want it, just for the people that some people are going to say like, yeah, please send it. I mean, the federal government, I mean, sent us how much was it, 1,600, and those like
Mm-hmm.
checks for like COVID or something like that. I don't know. It's just an idea for you guys over there.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you so much, Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I
Thank you for
appreciate,
having me. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
I appreciate all your knowledge in this. I'm rooting for you guys over there in Missouri. If you guys have any questions, what's the best way to reach you if anyone from Missouri sees this?
Yeah, so you can definitely reach me, through either email is ben.keathley@house.mo.gov. You can find all my on the Missouri House of Representatives page. You can find all my information and various ways to contact me. You can follow me on Twitter at Ben Keith, BenKeath. That's the best way to stay up to date, typically in real time with my legislation, particularly with this Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Fund bill. And I encourage everyone to do that and stay in the loop, because the great thing about federalism is what is successful and what we can do in one state can be replicated in a lot of other states,
Hmm.
and we have the power to really see policies in action before we in various states before we enact it all the way. So I think it's important that people all over the country follow what's going on in various states, even if it's not their home state.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to follow you on Twitter. I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
you had a Twitter. It's cool to have all these younger politicians that use Twitter, and it's easier to contact you guys. But yeah, thank
Yep.
you so much. Thank you so much for
Yeah, I
watching, and
appreciate it, Marco.
I appreciate it. And I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.